Welcome back. As we explore the digestive system, in this part, we are going to start that food pathway. You are swallowing, and now the food's going to travel through the thoracic cavity and enter the abdominal cavity as we explore what's happening with the esophagus, stomach, and small intestine. Lots of cool stuff going on. So the food tube that extends from inferiorly to the pharynx is called the esophagus. And it travels in the posterior mediastinum all the way through and goes into one of the 3 openings of the diaphragm to enter the abdominal cavity. And in the abdominal cavity, the junction between the esophagus and the stomach is called the gastroesophageal sphincter. And in lecture, you'll learn the importance of this. But I want to point out it is not called the esophagogastric sphincter. It's called the gastroesophageal sphincter. So in the intestine, we're going to have lots of sphincters. So here's the whole point of what a sphincter is. Sphincters are when we have extra, like we have an opening. Here we go. We have an opening and we want to control something going through it, okay? So for instance, we can make this the esophagus. And so what we do is we have extra circular muscle that goes around the circumference. So if it contracts, it can block off that opening. And so most of these we are going to be calling sphincters. So we'll have several sphincters in the digestive system. And the first one, the gastroesophageal sphincter between the stomach and the esophagus. Looking at the stomach, you can kind of see that it's J-shaped. It's a little bit left of the midline and comes over towards the right upper quadrant in this J shape. And when you look at the J shape of it, you can see that the superior portion forms a curve that is shorter than the inferior portion of the stomach. And you also can see at the gastroesophageal sphincter that part of it sticks up. Okay, so the picture on the right needs to be tilted a little bit. Okay, so it looks like this model over here on the right. This is the stomach, and so the gastroesophageal sphincter is right here, and you can see part of the stomach actually goes higher. It's going to go up and be tucked right under the diaphragm. And then here is another picture showing just the stomach with the esophagus coming down. And by the way, that's the vagus nerve, in case you were wondering what all those nerves were. That's all the vagus nerve, everything in the abdominal pelvic cavity, vagus nerve. Okay, a lot of parasympathetic stuff going on here. And so that is the upward projection of it. And this is showing the J shape pretty well. So that more superior part with the shorter length, that is called the lesser curvature of the stomach, whereas the inferior part of the stomach is called the greater curvature of the stomach. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at areas of the stomach. Okay, so if there is an arrow pointing at the stomach, unless it just says name the entire thing, stomach is not going to be the answer to the whole thing. You need to kind of pay attention. Does it say name this structure, in which case it could be pointing at the greater curvature or the lesser curvature or the sphincter, or does it say name this area? So the first area, what we do is we find that gastroesophageal sphincter and we kind of like draw a line where the upward pouching part is located. And that upward, the most superior part of the stomach is called the fundus of the stomach. And yes, it's important that you write stomach because the stomach is not the only organ that has a fundus, okay? And there's multiple organs just on this test that will have a fundus. Continuing on, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the lesser curvature and we're going to kind of draw a line that is a continuation of the lesser curvature, something like that. And so the area between these two lines is known as the body of the stomach. As you can see, the body of the stomach is most of the stomach. This is where the food sits, okay, for the food processing. And then that leaves us about the distal third of the stomach. And the distal third of the stomach is called the pylorus. Okay. So food is going to get processed in the body, then it has to move to the pylorus so it can exit and go into the small intestine. And at the junction of the stomach and the small intestine, do you see how here's the thickness of the muscle and then it comes in right there? That's because we have another one of those sphincters there, and it is called the pyloric sphincter. I want to draw your attention to the real cadaver one so that you can see how big this sphincter is. This sphincter can be felt on the outside without opening the stomach, so you can tell exactly where you are. And it has the size of a small plum, not one of those big plums, but those smaller plums that are used to make prunes. That's the size of your pyloric sphincter. Once you are past the pyloric sphincter, you are out of the stomach. But there's one more structure we need to talk about in the stomach, and it's all those wrinkles, okay? So those wrinkles are called the rugae of the stomach. And in lecture, you'll understand the whole point of them, but basically just think of the epithelial surface area is all wrinkly, okay? And then what happens on Thanksgiving when you eat your big meal, it means it can stretch out without ripping. So cool thing, those rugae. The models are going to show rugae all the way through, but if I give you a picture of a cadaver, notice that especially as you age, they are much more prominent in the proximal portion and not nearly as many distally, even on this younger person's stomach, much more prominent in the proximal half than they are in the distal half. So that's it for inside the stomach. Outside of the stomach, there's a very interesting structure that is attached and to the greater curvature of the stomach. So on the stomach models in lab, you can see this yellow line right there, and then it's cut because the rest of it is attached to the intestinal part of the model. And what happens is we have this layer of fatty tissue that hangs inferiorly. It's this bright yellow stuff over here in this cadaver, and it completely covers all of the small intestine and the large intestine anteriorly. So when we open the abdomen, it's not like on the TV shows where the guts just spill out all over. You've got this structure covering it. It's called the greater omentum. Yes, you can live just fine without it. If we go back to those original pictures where we were learning about the serosa and the intraperitoneal, retroperitoneal locations, you can see this is the stomach right here, and you can see that it hangs down from the stomach all the way down, and then it also is attached to part of the colon right here. You just can't see it right there. And so it's got 2 points of attachment. It hangs down like a half apron. Okay, so if you've ever seen your mother wearing a half apron, that's exactly what the greater omentum is. All right, so now let's move on to the small intestine, and you got like 20 feet of it, okay? And those 20 feet of the small intestine are divided into 3 areas, and on models, it may be difficult to tell which of the 3 areas you're in, but I am going to give you clues so you can get this correct on the test. The first area is the shortest. It's under a foot long, about 10 to 12 inches, and it is called the duodenum. So practice saying that. Duodenum. Don't say duodenum. That's like saying potato or tomato instead of tomato. So it's the duodenum. Okay. And so the duodenum, I'm going to flip to this model right here. And this model basically is showing the spleen in the left upper quadrant, and the stomach would be sitting right here. Okay. But the stomach has been taken out so you can see what is behind the stomach, which is that yellow long structure. So this is just past the pyloric sphincter. And so what the duodenum does, so you're just to the right of the midline is, and I'm going to do it on me because it's my right side, it would go like this in a C shape. And then it comes across to the midline, it goes just a titch past the midline, and then it's going to turn anteriorly. Okay. So let me show that again. just past the pyloric sphincter. We're going to go in a C shape. Okay, the C shape is because we have to go around this structure. So we go in a C shape around. We're on top of it. We go around the right side of it. We go underneath it. And then we're going to flip anteriorly. So this structure that it's going around is actually in the retroperitoneum. So what the duodenum does is really cool. It starts out intraperitoneal because it's attached to the pyloric sphincter. And when it's going to the right around it, it dives okay, when it's going around like this, it's actually diving posteriorly. And from here on, it is all retroperitoneal, 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 retroperitoneal. And that's why it's flipping to come back anterior to be intraperitoneal. Okay. As soon as it has flipped to come intraperitoneal, it's no longer duodenum. So on that same model where the yellow arrow is, and you can see that it's flipped anteriorly, it is now the second part of the small intestine, which is known as the jejunum. So the jejunum is going to start in the left upper quadrant of the abdomen, right there. And then there's going to be lots of it, you know, maybe 12 feet, 10 to 12 feet of it. Okay. And then at some point, it becomes the third part of the small intestine, known as the ileum. And then the ileum is going to go all over for about 8 more feet, and it's going to end in the right lower quadrant. So this is where it is ending. Okay, so we know that this is ileum because this is your large intestine over there. So this is ileum. On this particular model, so don't memorize this for all models. On this particular model, the small intestines have been color coded, and that's why I took this picture, but most models are not. We know this is the ileum from the color that it is here, which makes this the ileum, and it makes this the ileum, and it makes that the ileum, and it makes this the ileum. And then it makes all those other darker colors that makes all of that the jejunum. Now, most models are not going to have the color sequence to help you. So what you have to do is remember the jejunum starts in the left upper quadrant. So if something is tagged up there in the left upper quadrant, or if it's tagged right here where you see the duodenum flipping around to become jejunum, then you know that's jejunum. Whereas if something is tagged in the right lower quadrant where you can actually follow it going from the large intestine, if I tag it right there, you know that has to be ileum, because it's leading you right to the large intestine. Okay. Now, what keeps this 20 feet worth of stuff becoming all knotted and tied in a bow? Because, you know, you take your Christmas tree lights off, they might be nice and neat, you put them in a box and something miraculously happens in the next 12 months, they come out and they're all knotted. Okay. Well, your intestines don't work like that because they are all attached posteriorly. Okay. So do you see all these loops of small intestine? They are all attached posteriorly because this is where their blood vessels come in and out. Okay, so they're on a tether, and that tether is pretty short. So look at the picture to the right where you can actually see how long it is. The tether is like 3 or 4 inches long, and that is it. So you can't take something in the right lower quadrant and like, whoa, let's mix it up and tie a bow with something in the left upper quadrant. It just doesn't work. So the mesentery is very important. It's going to bring blood vessels for nutrition in, take out waste as well as nutrients from the digestive system, and there's going to be lymphatic system stuff involved in there as well. And with that, I do believe, yes, we are finished with the esophagus, stomach, and small intestine. I hope you enjoyed this first part, and when we come back, we will be looking at the large intestine. So thank you for all your hard work in this class, and I'll see you again soon.